Behind every locked door lies a story the world was never meant to hear. Welcome to Behind Bars TV, where we uncover the hidden realities of the world's toughest prisons, untold inmate experiences, and the systems built to contain them. From Supermax facilities to forgotten penitentiaries, we reveal the truth behind concrete walls and razor wire. This is not fiction. This is the world behind bars.
The flavor of punishment. They call it food. But in here, it's something else. In the most secure prison in the United States, ADX Florence, every meal is more than calories. It's a lesson in obedience. 3 times a day for life. No choice. No flavor. No contact. This is what it means to eat under absolute control. Rations of Obedience. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. The only events that break the endless silence of a 23-hour lockdown. But food at ADX Florence isn't about hunger. It's about control. Meals arrive sealed, inspected, logged. Every tray fits through a slot barely 4 inches high. Inside, 1 meat patty, 2 sides, a slice of bread, a carton of milk. No utensils. A spoon molded from soft plastic. One that snaps if pressed too hard. Each meal represents more than sustenance. It's a reminder. The state decides everything, even the temperature of your dinner. You can taste the discipline, one former guard said. It's bland on purpose. They want food that can't be enjoyed or shared. The cold kitchen. No inmate ever cooks at ADX Florence. Unlike ordinary federal prisons, kitchen duty here belongs only to civilians and officers. Every batch is measured, scanned, and recorded. Meals are cooked in bulk at a regional facility, sealed in vacuum pouches, trucked to Florence, and reheated under guard supervision. Each portion is identical, 2,600 calories, precisely balanced by dietitians. Smell? Minimal. Texture? Uniform. Taste? Secondary. Even time is regulated. Inmates have 20 minutes to finish eating. After that, trays are retrieved through the slot, inspected again to ensure nothing, not even crumbs, is kept. It's like feeding lab subjects, said a contractor who once worked there. You don't want them to feel human about it. What's on the menu? The official paperwork calls it a heart-healthy menu. But the reality inside the cell looks and tastes like monotony. Breakfast, powdered eggs, instant oats, fruit cup, milk. Lunch, bologna sandwich, canned corn, chips. Dinner, turkey loaf, mashed potatoes, green beans, Kool-Aid. Repeat. Every day. Week after week. Former inmate letters describe the sensation as colorless living. After a while, one wrote, "You don't know if you're eating chicken or paper. Everything tastes like the wall. Calories keep bodies alive. Uniformity keeps spirits contained. Food has become the architecture of compliance. The behavioral meal. When discipline fails, the menu changes. The punishment is the infamous Nutraloaf, a dense, flavorless brick made from pureed vegetables, flour, and powdered protein. No seasoning, no plate, no choice. It meets all nutritional standards, yet violates every instinct of appetite. Inmates who fight, spit, or throw trays are put on restricted diet. Twice a day, they get Nutraloaf until they comply. It's not cruelty, a warden once said. It's behavior management. But those who've eaten it call it torture in disguise. It's like chewing on punishment, one man wrote. After a week, you'll confess to anything just to taste normal food again. The scent of memory. In ADX Florence, the air is filtered. No cooking smells, no coffee, no smoke. Without scent, memory fades. Smell is tied to emotion, to family dinners, holidays, home. Erase smell, and you erase nostalgia. Psychologists call it olfactory deprivation. Inmates call it losing the world. I forgot what fried onions smell like, one inmate said. When I dream in silence and gray. Food without smell becomes food without history. And food without history becomes obedience. The kitchen of shadows. Cameras hang from every corner. The kitchen of ADX Florence is one of the most secure food facilities in America. No inmate ever steps inside. Every worker undergoes background checks, frisking, and surveillance. Even kitchen knives are chained to steel tables with retractable cables. Meals are cooked, sealed, scanned, and shipped under a chain of custody as strict as evidence handling. Every tray carries a serial number. Every spoon a log. It's not just food preparation, it's an operation. Security officers monitor temperature and weight with military-grade sensors, ensuring no contraband or extras ever slip through. The menu is pre-approved by Washington, D.C. Same recipe every week. One former contractor described it as feeding ghosts. You don't see them, you don't talk to them, you just send calories down the hall and hope it doesn't come back at you. Because sometimes it does. Food as a weapon. In a place where movement and sound are forbidden, rebellion has few tools. Food becomes one of them. Some inmates throw trays, not from hate, but from desperation. Others smear food across their walls, writing messages only they will ever read. One guard told the Marshall Project, "You know a man's losing it when he starts playing with his food. That's his last language." Refusal to eat becomes a form of protest. At ADX, hunger strikes are rare, but when they happen, they shake the system. In 2015, a small group of inmates refused meals for 9 days straight. Their demand? Better food, not gourmet, just warm, clean, consistent. The Bureau's response was textbook. Record every uneaten tray, monitor weight loss, offer nutritional supplements. But for the inmates, it wasn't about calories. It was about control. If they own your hunger, they own you, one man wrote. Even in silence, rebellion still finds a way to speak. The Holy Diet. Inside ADX Florence, faith and food are inseparable. The Bureau of Prisons must legally honor religious dietary requests, kosher, halal, vegetarian, or fasting programs. But in practice, it's another system of negotiation between obedience and belief. Religious meals arrive sealed in special packaging, halal certified or kosher cold tray. They are served on different schedules, observed by cameras to prevent misuse. During Ramadan, Muslim inmates eat before dawn and after sunset, alone, under fluorescent light. One wrote, "It's not a meal, it's a moment of silence, with God as my only witness." For some, religion becomes a refuge. For others, it's rebellion. Refusing non-halal food can lead to disciplinary reports. Guards see it as defiance. Inmates see it as dignity. In ADX, even faith is processed, documented, and sterilized. But it's one of the few things that still tastes human. The Nutraloaf Wars. By the mid-2000s, the Nutraloaf had become infamous across America's Supermax prisons. But in ADX, it became legendary, the edible weapon of obedience. Prisoners filed lawsuits across several states, arguing that Nutraloaf violated the Eighth Amendment against cruel and unusual punishment. In 2012, the U.S. Court of Appeals reviewed testimonies describing it as inedible sludge. Some inmates suffered malnutrition, vomiting, and depression. One lawyer told the New York Times, "When you make a man choose between starvation and swallowing this, you're not feeding him, you're breaking him." ADX avoided direct bans by reclassifying Nutraloaf as a restricted meal option. But inside, everyone knew what it meant. The tray with the gray loaf was the symbol of defeat, the final stage of control. "You can't taste punishment," an ex-inmate said, "but you can chew it." The fire in the tray. Some inmates turned their food into resistance, literally. In one recorded incident, an inmate used milk carton foil to spark a fire in his tray. He wasn't trying to escape. He just wanted the guards to see him. "When no one listens, you burn something they have to clean," he wrote in a disciplinary report. Every tray, every bite, every calorie in ADX is tied to a war not between inmates and staff, but between control and identity. The more sterile the food, the stronger the hunger for meaning. And sometimes, rebellion is as simple as refusing to swallow. The psychology of eating alone. In ADX Florence, mealtime is not social, it's diagnostic. Psychologists and guards quietly watch patterns through cameras. How long does an inmate take to eat? Does he clean the tray? Does he talk to himself while chewing? To most, these seem like meaningless details. But to ADX psychologists, these patterns signal control or collapse. An inmate who eats fast and mechanically is stable. An inmate who plays with his food, drawing symbols in mashed potatoes, rearranging peas into words, is showing the first signs of sensory fatigue. And an inmate who stops eating entirely has entered a state of behavioral rebellion. Hunger is the only freedom left, said one prison psychiatrist. When they refuse to eat, that's when we know they're still human. ADX's feeding schedule never changes, 6 a.m., 11:30 a.m., for p.m. sharp, even if a man is screaming, hallucinating, or silent for weeks. Food becomes a clock that never stops ticking, no matter how many minds fall out of sync with time. Recipes from the whole. Even in total isolation, men find ways to create. In ADX, food invention is a rebellion of imagination. They call them cell recipes. Meals crafted from scraps, patience, and desperation. A former inmate named Michael Santos described how he made prison pizza from commissary crackers, ketchup packets, and powdered cheese. Others made pudding from powdered milk and crushed cookies, mixed with hot water from sink taps. But at ADX, creativity is restricted by surveillance. Most prisoners have no commissary access. So they improvise with what they're given, crushing beans into paste, drying bread to make toast under light fixtures, even using toothpaste as edible glue. You can't cook here, one wrote, but you can pretend. Pretending keeps your mind alive. These makeshift meals are acts of defiance, small, invisible rebellions that say, you can cage my body, but not my imagination. The inmates who refuse to break. Each man inside ADX has his own relationship with food, a reflection of his mind. Theodore Kaczynski, the Unabomber. He refused processed food, ate oatmeal and apples, wrote in his diary that eating should be functional, not emotional. He saw mealtime as the only thing he could still control, his personal philosophy of restraint. Zacharias Moussaoui, the 9/11 conspirator, refused all pork products, often fasting for days. He once told guards, "Hunger is a weapon God gave us." El Chapo Guzman, the Mexican drug lord, demanded fresh fruit daily and refused powdered milk. When his requests were denied, he went silent for 3 days, a quiet protest that ended only when he was served real milk. In a place where every sound is forbidden, food becomes a man's last negotiation with the system. In here, one former warden said, a tray tells us everything. Who's angry, who's broken, who's still fighting. The experiment of taste. Overlay text, ADX study, Internal Bureau observation, redacted. In the early 2000s, psychologists inside the Bureau of Prisons quietly began studying the long-term effects of monotony in diet. They wanted to know, how long does it take before food loses meaning? For prisoners in total isolation, taste buds physically dull over time. Without variety, the brain stops releasing dopamine during meals. Food becomes mechanical, like breathing or blinking. After 2 years, a study noted, subjects report no pleasure or disgust, only routine. This numbness wasn't a side effect, it was the point. A man who stops reacting to food also stops reacting to confinement. One inmate said, after a while, I can't tell hunger from boredom. It all feels like chewing time. The scientists called it desensitization. The inmates called it erasure. The last meal that never comes. There are no executions at ADX Florence. It's a federal facility for life sentences. But the ritual of the final meal still haunts its walls. For men who will die inside, every meal becomes a version of that Last Supper. Some eat slowly, memorizing the texture of the bread. Others shove it down, pretending it doesn't matter. Every tray feels like a countdown, one inmate wrote. One day, it'll be the last, and I won't know it. Inmates who die at ADX, from age, illness, or suicide, leave behind identical trays, logged and photographed as evidence. The food is bagged, discarded, forgotten. In the official records, it's called meal unclaimed. Inside the system, that phrase means one thing. The human who was supposed to eat, it doesn't exist anymore. The laws of hunger. In a place built to silence voices, lawsuits became whispers that finally escaped. From 2008 to 2016, A series of cases challenged how ADX Florence fed its inmates, or refused to. One Muslim prisoner, Mahmoud Abu Ali, filed a lawsuit claiming his religious dietary rights were violated when staff repeatedly served him non-halal food. He said, "They tell me to eat or starve. I tell them I'd rather die with faith than live with compromise." Another inmate, diagnosed with schizophrenia, sued over being placed on Nutraloaf during psychotic episodes, a punishment he couldn't even understand. The case reached federal court under the argument of cruel and unusual punishment. And then there were the hunger strikes, silent protests that lasted weeks. The government's response: forced feeding. Under court order, inmates were strapped to chairs, tubes slid through their noses, and liquid nutrition pumped into their stomachs. The Bureau called it life-saving intervention. Advocates called it torture by nutrition. One guard who witnessed it said quietly, "They said it was about keeping him alive, but it looked like a man being punished for wanting to die." Feeding the invisible. For the staff who work here, food service isn't an act of compassion. It's procedure. They don't see faces. They see doors. Guards call it feeding the invisible. No names, just numbers. No reactions, just the sound of plastic trays sliding through metal slots. You start to forget there's a person on the other side, one former officer admitted. You feed them like you'd feed the shadows. But even guards aren't immune to the psychological toll. Some report vivid dreams, trays floating through endless corridors, hands reaching out but never touching. Others confess to guilt they can't explain. ADX doesn't just erase inmates, it starves empathy itself. You stop tasting your own food after a while, another staff member said. Everything feels institutional, even your dinner at home. The silence spreads beyond the walls. The economics of isolation. Feeding a Supermax prisoner costs over 3 times more than feeding an average inmate. Not because of luxury, but because of logistics. Every meal requires multiple levels of clearance, transport through secure tunnels, and disposal under camera. The ADX kitchen alone runs $3 million per year in operating costs for roughly 400 men who never see each other eat. Each calorie is security checked, each tray logged, each crumb documented. Even food waste is destroyed under supervision, in case contraband or messages are hidden inside. In a system obsessed with control, even leftovers are treated like evidence. It's not feeding people, a former auditor said. It's feeding a machine that eats money and silence. And yet, behind that financial precision lies irony. The richest prison meals in history feed men who no longer taste life. The food riot that never was. ADX has never had a full-scale riot, not one. No mass uprising. No kitchen takeover. But that doesn't mean rebellion is gone. In 2013, a quiet standoff took place in one of the special housing units. It started when a group of inmates refused breakfast trays in unison. No shouting. No violence. Just silence. By day 3, 1/3 of a unit had joined. It was the only time guards said the halls felt alive. The protest ended when psychologists promised minor menu improvements. Hotter meals, slightly larger portions. No violence. No headlines. The Bureau's internal memo later described it as a nonviolent collective behavioral adjustment event. But to the men inside, it was history. "We didn't throw fists," an inmate wrote. "We just refused to swallow the system." Sometimes, silence feeds the loudest revolution. The meal that defines America. For centuries, food has been the language of civilization. What we grow, what we share, how we break bread. But in the heart of America, there's a place where meals aren't shared, only delivered. Where eating is a schedule, not a sensation. Where flavor was sacrificed for order. From Alcatraz to Marion, from Pelican Bay to ADX Florence, the evolution of American punishment has been a war not just against violence, but against the human need to feel alive. "You can survive without love," one inmate wrote, "but not without taste." They took that too. In ADX Florence, food isn't just fuel. It's architecture. It's obedience. It's control in edible form. And perhaps that's the real horror. that in perfecting the system to feed its prisoners safely, America learned how to starve the soul completely.
What you just saw is more than a story. It's a reality lived by thousands behind bars. If you believe in uncovering the truth, the kind hidden behind concrete walls and silence, then join us. Subscribe to Behind Bars TV and never miss a chapter in the world's most dangerous stories. Until next time, stay aware, stay informed, and remember, freedom and confinement are sometimes only a wall apart.